Learning to drive is one of the scariest and most exciting challenges to take on. This is a milestone to freedom. For many, it's essential to everyday life. So getting your license is a big milestone. It means more hours at your job because you don't have to worry about the buses not running early enough for you to get to a 7 a.m. shift. It means better job opportunities. Instead of being bound to your hometown, maybe you can get that job in the next city. It means comfort. It means privacy. Public transit has its pros, but so does being able to drive. So a lot of people are encouraged to go to driving school. You get to learn the theory of driving, you get the driving instructor who has an extra pedal so they can intervene safely just in case. You could also take your road test earlier, and you get the perk of possibly getting a discount on your insurance. So we're going to go over some things to look out for when searching for a driving school. Then we'll review some schools. 1. Review the list of ministry-approved driving schools. Link is in the description. To narrow the list down, you can select the first letter of your city's name. 2. Make a list of the schools you're interested in. 3. Check the school's reviews. 4. Decide what kind of instructions you're interested in. For example, doing the in-class portion in a classroom or online if there's an option. 5. Get a copy of their policies and contracts in writing. Young Drivers of Canada. This driving school is one of the most expensive ones in Canada. Apparently, this is because they're very thorough with their lessons. The reviews are mixed, with some saying it went well and others saying the customer service wasn't good. However, one of the most common complaints, especially on Facebook, is that the online portion is laggy and crashes often. So in this event, a student contacted the owners of her driving school to discuss her progress. She had spoken to them once before about it and felt since then nothing changed. So she called to speak with them again. They get on the phone and the owner went on a tangent where she made personal insults, told her husband and the instructor that the student was complaining, and makes a whole bunch of statements and accusations that contradict each other. This retelling is mainly the quotes of the owner because a large portion of the conversation was the owner speaking and the student listening. The student expressed her concerns, requested a new instructor, and interjected when she was insulted. However, the instructor overtook the conversation from there. The quotes were taken directly from the conversation. This situation involves the student, the owners, which is a wife and a husband, and 3 instructors. So the owner of Provincial Driving School was asked by a student to change driving instructors. When the student discussed one of the reasons why, which was lessons not being taught, the owner said, "There is no guarantee that they'll ask you that on the test anyway." Red flag. If the instructors claim they'll teach you something before you pay, they should be more than happy to commit to that after you pay. If you or they aren't confident that the lessons you paid for initially are enough, you should be communicating whether or not you want to take the extra lessons when the package you paid for is complete. Then, without the student's permission, the owner tells the driving instructor what the student said. Talk about a complete breach of trust and privacy. Red flag. Complaints about instructors should be confidential and should be handled with care. There was no reason to share the conversation with the instructor, especially if the student did not want to continue taking lessons from him. When the owner told the instructor replied, "Well, she's just being difficult." Red flag. The owner shares this with the student, clearly doubling down on her other comments. This phrase carries such a negative connotation for a lot of groups of people. This was an inflammatory statement, continuing to escalate this already unprofessional conversation. The owner should not have shared the student's comments with the instructor, and the owner should not have entertained that insult made by the instructor. The owner told the student that something's off. It's not normal for you to be jumping from instructor to instructor. Prior to this, the student had two other instructors, one that didn't schedule any lessons with the student, and another that had dangerous driving habits that apparently have been an issue with other students as well. When the student said, "Wait a minute, those were issues you were having with your employees," the owner said, "Well, we already dealt with that." So the owner tries to use those past instructors as justification for being annoyed by the request to switch. Instead of acknowledging she assigned unprofessional people to the student. Red flag. It's imperative that driving students feel safe and comfortable with their instructors. Anything less is a hazard. That comment was out of line and it implies something that crosses a major line. It's simply unethical to say something like that to a customer, a student, or anyone really. Another thing the owner said to the student was, "We always give students a new instructor when they ask, but 90% of our students stay with the same instructor." She even says she can prove it, although the student didn't ask about the stats. The owner also said, "Well, you can't just get a new instructor as soon as you ask. That's not how it works," although the student didn't request a timeline. Red flag. When the owner or instructor of a driving school says they offer something, or it's a part of their policy, they should honor it without deflecting, insulting, or trying to unconvince you. Although this happened during one phone call, the student had notified the teacher before this about her concerns, but she was brushed off. The student decided not to continue with the school after this conversation. When the school was notified and asked to refund the unused lesson, they didn't respond. In this case, the student paid in full before finishing her lessons. Most driving schools will ask you to do this. Always make sure to read their return policies and ask for a written contract. You're entitled to one by law. Know your rights. You may be eligible to cancel the contract, but there is a time limit of a year in Ontario. After that, the Consumers Act may not apply to you. This is what happened to the student, so a complaint with Ontario's Consumer Protection Act passed the deadline. If you aren't comfortable paying in full for your lessons, ask your instructor if you can pay as you go. That's how it would be done anyways if you paid for private road lessons only, without the in-class portion.